the ego is a defense mechanism. It's a psychological defense mechanism, and it has utility for a child. If you think about what it's like to be a child, if you were putting your child, if you were taken back in time now, and you were suddenly given a 2-year-old's body or a 3-year-old's body, it's an incredibly difficult environment because you're constantly getting things wrong. Constantly messing things up. There's so much you don't know. And you're constantly put in situations way beyond your comfort zone. See, if we were adults and we're put back into that kind of environment, we'd fall apart very quickly, most of us. Because there's so much uncertainty and so many mistakes you make. You're dropping things, you're getting told off all the time. The ego is there to protect the child. So from a psychological point of view, there's a reason why there is an ego. Now, as the child develops, what could happen, what we could say should happen, is that ego, as it's less and less needed, it recedes naturally over time. It's like a developmental process. It's like when you learn to ride a bike, you might use stabilizers. Okay? And then when you get good at riding the bike, you can take the stabilizers off. Yeah, stabilizers. So, but the thing is, if you don't, so they're useful, there's utility to it, but then we outgrow it, you see. And what we see with most of us is we live in a society which doesn't really foster and facilitate our emotional development fully. So we rely on these crutches. Sorry to introduce another metaphor, stabilizers, these crutches, long into adulthood, and they form part of our personality. And these are actually, in a way, defects in our personality, we could say. The defects in that they're defense mechanisms to protect a younger version of ourselves that in an ideal world we would have grown out of. But we haven't, for whatever reason. So that's the reality. So the egotism is a psychological defense mechanism, a lot of it. But there's a much more fundamental aspect of ego, which is basically the belief that I am a body-mind, the belief that I am limited. We call this ignorance in the wisdom teachings, in Vedanta, in Buddhism. It's called ignorance, avidya. Vidya means knowledge, avidya means ignorance. And this is the root of egotism. And pretty much all societies everywhere perpetuate this myth. They do it tacitly. They tacitly perpetuate the myth of separation. Tacit means they don't do it on purpose, or they don't do it in an open way. It's often hidden and in a subconscious way. It's just assumed. It's a priori knowledge that we are separate. It is assumed that it is self-evident, a priori, that we are separate, whereas that's an assumption. Most people don't realize that. This is the root of that egotism. But why is any of this allowed at all? Why does God allow any of this, we could ask? I don't know. But on the relative level, there are reasons why psychological ego develops. And you'll see it's a defense mechanism. And it's rooted in this wrong identity. It doesn't say we are the infinite, we're the divine, we are the pure consciousness. However you want to phrase that. It says we are the body-mind, and it goes from there. It starts from limitation and then proceeds to further limitation. Limitation breeds fear, always. Because when you're limited, you're small and vulnerable, subject to birth, disease, old age, death. And then you conceive of yourself as living in a world full of people, and all of them are subject to birth, disease, old age, and death. And then you get worried about yourself and others. And then if someone does something that potentially could harm you, you might get offended, you might get angry, you might become violent, you might get upset, you might suffer, you might think you're not good enough. All these things flow out from all these psychological imbalances, all these emotional disturbances flow out from a deep sense of I am the body-mind. So when the I'm the body-mind illusion is healed, over time, all these other emotional, psychological disturbances get healed. And the ego, which is like the training wheels, stabilizers, which were useful at one point in our childhood development, now we can take those stabilizers off. We can freewheel. We can ride the bike without training wheels, without stabilizers. This is called liberation. It means you are, in the relative world, you're a peaceful, emotionally mature, nice person, loving person, caring person. You have limits on the relative level because every human being does. But you will not have the, just like riding a bike, you'll be free to ride a bike. You're not always going to get everything completely right, but you're free. You're not reliant on these crutches, on these stabilizers anymore, which slow you down and cause suffering. So you can look psychologically, if you have, especially if you, most of us have a whole load of psychological issues. And when you've solved one of them, then you find more underneath, And then when you solve those ones, there's usually some more underneath there. So there's a bit of, usually takes some time to get through the psychological baggage. But these teachings can really help you whiz through all that psychological unpacking, all that psychological healing. It just starts to fall away once the root illusion is seen through. So we can already see there's like a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. There's like an approach where we can start looking into our psychology and healing our psychological issues. We can look into the details of our psychology, you see, and start healing all these issues. Maybe we've got issues about our parents, maybe we've got issues with authority figures, maybe you've got issues with relationships, maybe you've got issues in your workplace, and you start dealing with all these different aspects of your life. That's all the detail. That's all the specifics. That's all the variety of issues we have in our life. And on the other side, we've got this one issue, which is belief I'm the body and mind, belief I'm limited. So what these spiritual teachers, they attack this one issue upon which all the other ones are dependent on. If you just do this properly, all the other stuff falls away. But realistically, we end up doing both. Because with loads of issues going on here, you're not really able to get down to this core because you just consumed with all this detail stuff. So you'll find your way, and you're going to probably end up bouncing between these two fields or doing them both at the same time in parallel to one extent or the other, and they both help each other. As you sort your life issues out, your psychological issues out, you become calmer, more peaceful. We call that purification. These are the two wings of the teaching, by the way, guys. People who've been coming to this meeting for a while, and you know the two wings of the teaching. There's insight and purification. As we deal with all our psychological issues, we're becoming calmer, more peaceful, happier beings. As we deal with our maybe issues of low self-esteem, issues with authority figures, issues with anger, depression, whatever it is, become more peaceful. As you become more peaceful, your mind becomes clearer, more able to see the root problem. As you start realizing that this root, I am limited, I am an individual, is wrong, is an illusion, you realize you're one with God. You realize you're the total divine. There's nothing to be afraid of ever. You turn around, you look your demon straight in the eye, and you see them disappear in front of you. You realize that these ferocious beasts that you're scared of in your life, these beasts represent your fears, they're just holograms. They look scary. When you're running from them, you feel very afraid. You stress, you suffer. But when you turn around, you be strong, you look at them in the eye, they disappear, or they reveal themselves as holograms. Illusion. There's nothing there. Nothing can harm you. This is wisdom. This is insight. This is non-duality. This then, once you have that, a sense of that, then all the other stuff, all your self-esteem issues, all your authority figure issues, all your other issues, they start to go away, you see. So the insight and the purification, they come together. And this is why what we see in the West at the moment, probably everywhere actually, in the East as well, is that most teachings concentrate either on one or the other. The insight teachers are non-dualistic. The purification teachers are dualistic. This is why there's both types of teaching. So if someone's got a psychological issue, you can maybe help them with some dualistic teachings. And that's going to be useful. Just to say there's no one here, or it's all consciousness all the time is not necessarily useful.